This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Hoffman. Today is Thursday, September the 7th, 2023. We're so glad you could join us. Coming up a little later in the program, we start talking with some of the presidential candidates that have reached out with us. And I talked with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. during the Iowa State Fair about some of the concerns he has about the future of agriculture in the country. We also take a look at that ag weather outlook, but first, let's run down the markets. It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. Well, we're at the end of another trading day, and it's time to talk with Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. And Robin, what are we seeing in those grains here as we get ready to end this Thursday?
Well, corn is just struggling. It's just kind of moving back and forth. It's I think the trade is, in essence, just kind of waiting to see what we're going to have on the World Supply and Demand Report next week, and waiting for harvest. I mean, we're getting some varying reports out of harvest, some good crops, good yields coming off of some of the corn, drying down. I was just drying down quicker than many had anticipated. Some of the farmers that are chopping for corn solids, now they can't get fast enough because it's drying down so much. So, but the corn's kind of in this limbo, I think. You look at the chart, you look at how it's been trading, even the decrease in corn crop conditions that we saw on Tuesday really didn't have much impact on corn, had more impact on soybeans. But then on the soybean side, we had a nice bump up there off the crop, or decreasing crop conditions, but that petered out too. So today, we basically took that all away and then some. And a lot of that had to do with some of the reports coming out from China as far as their economic reports, as far as their exports of goods, their just a number of different things, and also that they've been increasing their imports of soybeans from Brazil, soybeans and corn. So that weighs on the market. Now, that's also maybe a little too early for the World Supply and Demand Report to be a real focus, but I think traders are starting to look that way because they have tomorrow, then they have the weekend, and then Monday prior to the report. Now, the estimates for the World Supply and Demand Report were released, and Reuters is looking at corn at, and this is a survey of a number of different firms, corn at 173.5 bushels to the acre, and that's down from the 175.1 on the August report. So you're trimming some of that gains on a per acre basis, with production at 15.008 billion bushels. The last report was 15.111 billion bushels. Soybeans, they're looking at 50.2 bushels to the acre versus the 50.9 that took place back in August. And on production, 4.157 bushels, down slightly from the 4.205 billion bushels. So it seems like that's being factored into the market already. So that's really not going to be that much of an issue. But they are probably going to start focusing that way. The crop seems to be along far enough right now. So a lot of this crop conditioning, the anticipation and everything just is not providing a lot of sustained support under that market. Now, Brazil came out with their corn production. They revised it higher to 131.9 million tons. For the month, for this last revision they made, and Brazil's corn exports reached a record 9.3 million tons for the month of August in itself, and 2.3 million tons of that went to China alone. And that was an increase of 45% from a year ago. Now, The dollar index was higher too again today, made a new high for this movement that we've had, and it's the highest level since March. So that's, again, generally says some kind of an impact or a correlation that is being made to the grain markets, as far as exports are concerned. So I think we just kind of are seeing a lot of back and forth, a lot of struggling, and just seeing some pressure that came in on primarily the wheat and soybean market today.
So switching gears to livestock, what are we looking there?
Well, cattle have been interesting in that they were kind of struggling for a period of time. Feeder cattle led the charge this week higher. New contract highs yesterday and later contracts, new contract highs in all contracts today, the feeder cattle situation. It seems like the trade spent long enough just anticipating some positive news. And really the news isn't that positive, but they just had to buy into that market. So we haven't had any real significant trade develop so far this week. As far as cash is concerned in the live cattle market, there were a few traded in Iowa. I think yesterday was about $1 higher at 179 on the live side. But the asking prices in the South basically are at 180, and they're holding firm on that. They want to see a little bit higher cash than last week. Now we are pushing trade to Friday again, which that's been a pattern for the last number of weeks. And what we've seen is that once we've traded, when we pushed it to Friday, we were steady to a little bit lower. I don't know how much longer the feedlots are going to hold out, because they've been holding out the last number of weeks to the end and then carrying some cattle over, but it hasn't netted them any benefits. So I have a tendency to think we may see steady to lower trade once trade commences to a greater volume. Now, box beef prices were lower at midday today. Choice was down $2.65, select down $1.13. So I think on the live cattle side, it's biding its time. It's kind of moving. It's in a higher range or level, but it's moving sideways. It needs to see some further support from cash in order to push out and break out to the top side. Now cattle numbers are tight, and they're not going to get any less or any looser than that for quite some time. But it is up to that demand situation to see what's going to be, or how high we can really hold these markets. Now, on the hog side, today they were taking back quite a bit of yesterday's losses, at least in the nearby months, and that is keeping it into a sideways pattern. Midday cutouts were down 16 cents, not something we like to see, but they were slightly lower. Hopefully the afternoon final print will be higher. There was no midday cash reported today because of packer confidentiality issues. And so the trade is kind of flying a little bit of blind that way. Saturday slaughter is the interesting one. They're looking at Saturday slaughter at 344,000 head. That's the highest I've ever seen that I can recall anyway for a Saturday slaughter. So they're trying to make up for what they lost on Monday, and they need to, because they need to fill that demand. That's good. It's good, steady demand, and slaughter rates are doing well. And so there's going to be a lot of hogs moving through on Saturday in order to continue to meet that demand.
All right. Well, if folks want to pick the brains of everybody at agmarket.net, kind of get some ideas of what they're doing and maybe what they should be looking at for 2024's crop, what's the best way for them to get in touch, Robin?
Well, they can call me directly at 877-256-3253, or call or go to our website, agmarket.net. There's a phone number there that they can call, and somebody will be glad to help them.
All right, Robin, well, we thank you so much for the insight, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
And that was Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. Let's go ahead and take a look at those closing numbers. That comes to us courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart. December corn was up a half at $4.86 1/4. March corn unchanged at $5 even. November new crop beans 16 3/4 cents lower at $13.59 1/2. January down 15 1/2 at $13.73 3/4. Soy meal $4.50 lower at $3.9640. Soy oil down $1.69 at $62.09. Chicago wheat down 9 1/4 at $5.99 3/4. Minneapolis down 7 3/4 at $7.74 3/4. Kansas wheat down 12 1/2 at $7.37. December oats down 2 1/4 at $4.96.5. October live cattle 95 cents higher at $183.65. September feeders 242 higher at $255.57. Lean hogs 95 cents higher at $82.82. Pork cutouts up 62 cents at $93.55. Class 3 milk is 11 cents higher at $18.62. And that's been our ag market recap. We're going to take a short break and come back after we hear from the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. And I'll be talking with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to AMPM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Well, we obviously know that the presidential campaign is well underway as the field is full of Republicans and even a few Democrats that are challenging President Biden for his office. One of those challenging him from his own party is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He stopped by and talked to us during the Iowa State Fair, and we talked about some of the concerns he has with agriculture going forward and what he would like to see changed if he's elected. Right here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and pleased to be joined right now by Robert Kennedy Jr., and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today.
Thank you, Dustin. I'm happy to be here.
So, you're getting around to tour Iowa State Fair. It's a big showcase for agriculture here in the state. I know you just met with the cattlemen. What are the takeaways you're seeing here from the Iowa State Fair and talking to the people?
It's really inspiring to see the commitment, particularly of so many young farmers, people have been on, whose family has been on the land 7 generations, and that they're committed to making sure that we have wholesome food, that we have family farmers. Thomas Jefferson's vision was that American democracy could not survive unless it was rooted in tens of thousands of freeholds owned by yeoman farmers, family farmers, each with a stake in our system. And today half the land in Iowa is now owned by people who are not farming it, and we're seeing a big consolidation. We're seeing Smithfield Food has come into the state and is a Chinese company and owns almost 100% of pork production in Iowa, and I don't think that's good for food security. One of the big threats that we see to farmers now are these carbon capture pipelines, which is one of the biggest boondoggles I've ever seen in my life. It's a boondoggle of the oil industry. It's going to do nothing to reduce carbon. And it's 80% of the people in Iowa are against it. 45 counties have petitioned the Iowa Utility Board to stop this eminent domain process. We're destroying some of the best farmland in America. We're destroying people's property rights. And we're going to do no good, zero good for the climate with this. It's all a boondoggle for big oil.
So getting back to the whole idea, factory farms and stuff, I know a lot of family farms have had to go the way of contract growing because of the fact the markets have been so tough. I mean, how can we do this to help bring back the family farm or re-strengthen it so there isn't that dependency or looking for easy dollars?
It's not only, part of it is market forces, but one of the things I worry about is having our food production controlled by a foreign company. Mm-hmm. And I watched this happen, and I watched Smithfield come into North Carolina in the 80s. There were 28,000 independent hog farmers at that time, and within 5 years it had dropped the price of hogs from 62 cents a pound to 2 cents a pound, and it cost a farmer 35 cents a pound to raise that animal to kill weight. They put out of business over a 5-year period every farmer, every independent hog producer in the state. They replaced them with 2,200 factories, all of them, virtually every one of them, either owned by or contracted to Smithfield. Smithfield said, well, we're an American company. This is an American enterprise, good for America. That price of hogs, that price point forced Iowa to also adopt the same system, and then Smithfield sells itself to the Chinese. Now the Chinese company owns all the hog production in the state, and I talked to a farmer yesterday I spent a lot of time talking to him, and he said that, you know, his hog shed, the Murphy 3000, cost him $750,000. And Smithfield contracted him. He's paying off that, and they walked away from the contract. They left him with the hog shed, and now, you know, you have this a company that's basically it's a colonial model. It's a foreign company that comes in here, befriends some of the political leaders, pays them off, and the oligarchs, and is transferring food production and natural resources and the people who sign these contracts no longer have any control over their farms. The hogs belong to Smithfield, the food belongs to Smithfield, manure belongs to Smithfield. All the decisions that are made on those farms are being made in Beijing. Oh, it's you know, a family farmer is by definition somebody who makes the decisions on his own property, and that this is worry. So I cannot tell you today what we ought to be doing, but if I'm president, I'm going to do something about it, because I don't want, it's not good for our country to have our food production and our landscapes controlled at this rate by a foreign government that is adversarial to us.
I know there was a lot of talk. I know we've had Senator Joni Ernst talk about Chinese ownership of land in the United States too,
Yeah.
and how that's become a problem. Now Iowa's got a law on the books they're trying to make federal right now, but at least to prevent that from only to so many acres. But having them buying land, wherever that is.
But even, you know, if it's not a foreign company, if it's BlackRock or Vanguard or State Street, which own 88% of the S&P 500, and you see all over Iowa, you see these LLCs coming in and buying land, and we don't know who owns those, you know, and there's been 700,000 Americans who lost their homes last year, 700,000 the year before. Both those years we lost more homes than we did in the 2008 mortgage crisis. Those homes are being bought up by big corporations, and those corporations are almost all owned by BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. So they're buying the homes, they're buying the commercial properties, they're buying the residential, and they're buying the farms. And they're doing it in ways that are, in many ways, invisible to the American people, and it's not good for our country.
So, going back, the message with the farmers here as well. Farmers have long felt to be underappreciated. 2% of the population feeding the country. What do you have for a message for the Iowa farmers out here?
Well, but you know, my job as president is to keep family farmers in business. And making sure that they, you know, I'm against the death tax for farms. I think that we want to keep those farms in the hands of farmers and their families and their children. And, you know, I want to reduce a lot of the regulatory burdens on these farmers to make sure that they can stay in business, that they can make a living and prosper, and that our farmland here, that we're producing food for Americans, and it's wholesome food, at the soils, we're to encourage people to do regenerative agriculture, to cover crops, do all the things we need to preserve soil for generations and to preserve America for generations. And that strength of our country has always been food production. You know, we're losing it.
Yeah. And I know you've been big on environmental concerns, obviously, you know, and talking about the regenerative agriculture. We're starting to see more and more people do it, but it's also had to become incentivized, because if you're changing the way production is, you got to change the way farmers need to make money on that land.
Yeah, of course, and the government has to help them, because the government addicted to bad farming by making it impossible, making living on a farm without these perverse incentives, encouraging, you know, incentivizing, you know, uses of the property and agricultural strategies that are not really benefiting the country or that individual farmer. Look, I've met so many farmers in this state who can't drink their own water from their own wells because it's poison. Mm-hmm. And no farmer wants to do that.
Right.
You know, the only reason he's doing that is because of a perverse incentive system that forces him to overuse poisons on the farm in order to compete with his neighbors, because they're victims of the same perverse incentive system. So we need to change that, and we need to help farmers transition, and particularly the smaller farms, 160 acres, half a section of land. We want to keep those people more than any on the land.
Oh, Mr. Kennedy, I thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us, give us a lot to consider, and for the Iowa farmers to think about here as well. I appreciate you taking the time, sir.
Thank you, Dustin.
Well, that again was presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now let's take a look at the ag weather outlook. Well, the sun is shining. There's a chance of some rain coming up a little later on tonight and more rain expected this weekend. Now, obviously, we got a long ways to go to make up drought monitors and low Mississippi River levels, but we'll start in the right direction. We'll take what we can get. Let's take a look at what the National Weather Service has in store for those next 24 hours. Well, those smoky skies are going to continue across most of the state, of course, prompting some air quality warnings as well. Variably smoky skies and haze across much of the state, but otherwise mostly sunny today. Highs were in the low 70s to around 80. Now, clouds are going to roll in briefly from the west tonight. Might be a few spotty chances of showers and storms, and those will increase, but then rapidly decrease once again. Lows will be in the 50s, and then tomorrow, clouds will decrease quickly once again. Sunny skies, but just a little bit warmer, but not bad. 77 to about 84 degrees. Taking a look at the affiliate weather map, tomorrow it looks like Cherokee will be the hot spot, sunny and 84. Shenandoah, Des Moines, and Albia, all sunny and 82. Waterloo, sunny and 80. And Clinton, the cool spot, sunny and 77 degrees. For more detailed forecasts in your area, tune to your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. And that's been the Ag Weather Outlook. And with that, we're at the end of today's show. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel. And while you're there, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified each time we put out a new video project. You can also find out more on our market podcasts. They come free to you on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Google, and Podbean. From the iARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for joining us. This has been Ag Matters PM.